let's talk about identity. A lot of times people get stuck in what happened to them in the past. They get stuck in their current circumstances that it's very hard for them to figure out how to change their lives to get from point A to point B, from where they are today, where they came from, and where they want to be. Hi Internet, my name is Johanna. I am a cooking personality, Mama Cuisine, and owner of Varieties Aegis Financial, where we focus on corporate, retirement, and insurance. Here I like to talk about family, food, faith, finance, and fun. So let's get back about talking to identity. You know, a lot of times, even in my own life, I often sat, even when I was a little girl, and visualized who I was going to be when I became this age. And there was a lot of course, missing parts when you're a little girl or a little boy. But you have to have this vision and you have to have creativity. And so a lot of times as we become adults, we get stuck. We get stuck in the process of life. We get stuck in the mundane. We get stuck a lot of times in painful situations in our lives. And we don't ever think there's a way out or to change. So a lot of times people accept where they are. And they realize the only way for me to get through life is to accept where I am today. And this is all life is going to be. Let me tell you, that is the biggest lie. In order to change your identity, and I've changed my identity several times. And a lot of times our identity, first you have to figure out what is my identity, right? I started off as, of course, a little girl in the Philippines. Those of you who may not know, I was born in the Philippines, grew up there till I was 9. We moved here to the United States. I come from a reverend father, and my mother and father were professionals in the pharmaceutical industry. I come from a family that is very big in business, huge entrepreneurs. My mother's side of the family did a lot of things from the province in the Philippines, but did a lot of great things, politics in our hometown, so many great things. I came from a very good family. But it doesn't mean that we didn't have our own craziness, just like every family does. Everyone has a family background. And a lot of times we wrap our identity around that. And I had a baby when I was 20 years old. And so I could have gotten stuck with that identity. I could have gotten stuck and told myself, this is all I am. I got married when I was 24 years old, was married for 10 years, divorced 10 years later with 3 kids, 2 daughters. So I have a son and 2 daughters. I could have gotten stuck on that and said, I'm just a divorcee. That's all I am. All I am is a divorced woman. That's it. This is my life. I'm just a sad single mom now. Right? I could have gotten stuck in that. No. I also started a cooking show back in 2009. And evolved myself and grew myself to that identity, a cooking personality. I could have gotten stuck on that and said, this is all I am. I'm a cooking personality. This is all I'm going to be. And I'm going to stay here. Although I'm still doing that. I still do TV appearances, but I evolved. In 2018, I went into the financial services industry and continued to evolve from there. And so I eliminated the identity who I did not want to be anymore, meaning character traits in myself that I no longer wanted to be, and evolved into who I did want to be. But how do you do that? How do you transition your identity? How do you transition your life from one place to another and continue to grow? Because guys, the beauty of life is that you get to have so many different versions of yourself along the way. The beauty of life is that you get to grow from 0 to 100 as fast as you can stomach yourself and the risks that you're willing to take. And it's such a beautiful journey, even though we do have a lot of ups and downs and ebbs and flows in life. That's life. But how do you get from point A to point B? My tip number 1 is this: get around the people who are doing what you want to do. Because it will help form your identity when you get around people. For instance, for myself, in corporate retirement and insurance, how do I get really good in this field? Get around the people who are doing that. Get around the agency owners who are doing that. Get around the people who are helping, who have corporate clients, because I will adopt and adapt my mind to the language to the language of the industry, to the language and how, right? The ifs, what's, how are they doing it? Now, you may be a single woman and you want to be married. You want to get around married people. You want to adopt healthy habits in relationships. Maybe you want to be a better parent. You want to surround yourself. First is your environment. Surround yourself in the environment and people who are trying their best and doing their best and creating healthy parenting relationships with their children, because you will adapt your mind, learn things. That's one of the first steps that I could think of that I want to focus on today, is changing your environment. Because just like what they said, birds of a feather flock together. So you have to think, who am I surrounded with? Because these are the people whose language I'm mimicking, and you don't realize that you're mimicking it. You're mimicking the mindset, the habits. So if you're around people, right, who are not pushing themselves or not in the realms of where you want to be, if you're around people who have bad relationships with their partners, who are absent in their parenting, who are just doing the minimum, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not what you want, right? You want to get around people who are doing extra stuff, who are taking the habits, because it's your habits and it's our choices and it's our actions that form our life. And a lot of times people have such a hard time changing their identity. And so they're just one identity from start to finish, when actually you should be always growing your identity. You should always be growing your mind. You should always be changing your life. Life has so many seasons. There's seasons of low, there's seasons of high, right? There's reap and you sow. And so our actions really will determine the outcome 3 months later. And the second tip that I could say is, look at your life just like a business every quarter, every 3 months. Look at your life and measure your life every 3 months. Where are you now, and where would you like to be 3 months from now? It's very overwhelming to think who I want to be 5 years from now. Who do I want to be when I'm 60? Who do I want to be when I'm 50? Who do I want to be when I'm 40? Think and break down this big vision of your life into every 3 months. Who do I want to be 3 months from now? Who do I want to be by February? Who do I want to be by the end of February, by March? What do I need to do now to get to that goal every 3 months? And when you look back, you're going to realize, wow, I have changed my life. I hope that was helpful to you, and someone that you know. If this was interesting to you, make sure that you save it, make sure that you share it. And thank you so much for listening.